Have you been Googling what type of anxiety you have? Because anxiety has started to feel confusing, frightening, or hard to explain. Do you recognise yourself in more than one type of anxiety, such as panic, health, sleep, intrusive thoughts, social anxiety? Maybe it's phobias or constant overthinking. And are you starting to wonder what is really going on underneath it all and whether this is something that you can actually change? Welcome back to our channel where we talk about all things relating to anxiety and our mental well-being. In this video, we will be talking about the different types of anxiety, why they often overlap, and why the label is only one part of the story. If you have been searching for answers, the first thing I want you to know is that recognising yourself in several types of anxiety does not mean you are broken. It does not mean that you are more complicated than everyone else. And it certainly does not mean that you are stuck like this forever. It usually means our nervous system has learned to stay on high alert in more than one situation. So one person might feel anxiety around their health, another person might feel it in social situations. It might show up as panic for somebody else, intrusive thoughts, or actually a specific fear that seems to make no logical sense. And the label can help us understand where anxiety is showing up. But the deeper work is understanding why it has been learnt to fire there in the first place. So as we go through the different types of anxiety today, try not to use the labels as something else to judge yourself with. Use them as information. Use them as clues. Use them as a starting point for understanding what your body and mind have been trying to protect you from. We'll look at a variety of different types of anxiety today, including generalised anxiety, social anxiety, health anxiety, separation anxiety, OCD patterns, phobias, PTSD as well. But more importantly, we are going to look at what may be happening underneath the anxiety itself. Because when we understand anxiety as both a nervous system pattern and an unconscious mind pattern, it can start to make far more sense. So let's start by understanding why anxiety can have so many different names. One person may be anxious in meetings, another may be anxious about their health, someone else may be struggling with panic attacks specifically on the motorway but in no other situation. Another person may feel fine all day, then suddenly become anxious at bedtime. Now on the surface, these can look like completely different problems. But underneath, we often see the same pattern. It's a nervous system that has learned to fire its threat response too quickly, and an unconscious belief that keeps that response active. So we need a recalibration of the nervous system. Now, the belief might sound like I'm not safe or I'm not good enough. People might believe that something is bad will happen to them if they don't carry out certain routines, or if they lose control of a situation. They'll feel vulnerable and exposed. Most of the time, we do not even consciously choose these beliefs. Often they are formed much earlier in life through our experiences, our stresses, overwhelm, pressure, rejection, loss, instability, or moments when our nervous system did not feel safe. Then years later, anxiety shows up in the body. Our heart races, our chest tightens, our stomach turns over, and our breathing changes. Our muscles start to brace and the thoughts in our head are louder and faster. The mind starts scanning for danger. From the outside, it can look like worry, but from the inside, it can feel like a full body alarm. And that is why simply telling ourselves to calm down rarely works. Because anxiety is not simply a thinking problem, it's a nervous system pattern and an unconscious mind pattern. Our thinking may add fuel to the fire, but the response is often happening much deeper than conscious thought. Now, you don't need to struggle alone. Now is the right time to take back control of your life and free yourself from those anxious thoughts. And if you're finding this video helpful, please do go ahead and like and subscribe to the channel and turn on the notifications so you don't miss any of our future videos on anxiety. And you'll also have access to the workbooks. Now, my name is Jennifer Roblin. I'm an anxiety specialist and therapist and the founder of Better Your Life. We help children, teenagers, adults understand what is driving their anxiety, calm their nervous system, and feel back in control again. So if you would like to get some support, just click on the link over in the description. Now, at the height of my own anxiety, I would struggle to walk into a meeting room in my own office, even though I knew everyone in there and could chat to them easily on the office floor. The moment the meeting room door closed behind me, something shifted. My chest tightened, my mouth went dry, and my mind raced. I knew logically that I was safe, but my body did not feel safe. And around the same time, I had a severe phobia of mice. I couldn't even say the word. A leaf moving on the pavement could send me running. I once tried to get off a moving train because I saw an image of a mouse in a magazine. At the time, I thought these were all separate problems: meeting anxiety, phobias, health anxiety, sleep anxiety, social anxiety. It was only when I trained in this work that I understood what was really happening. They were not completely separate parts of me. They were the same nervous system response, firing in different situations, with the same deeper patterns underneath. That is why understanding the type of anxiety can help, but understanding the pattern underneath is where the real change begins. So let's go through some of the different types of anxiety, starting with generalised anxiety. This is the pattern many people think of first. It is when worry feels excessive, hard to switch off, and spread across many areas of life. It might impact work, money, health, family, relationships, the future. It might even be a text that's not been replied to. The subject may change constantly, but the feeling underneath stays the same. Generalised anxiety can feel like never being able to put your shoulders down and relax. The nervous system remains on alert, almost as if it is constantly looking for the next thing to do. Social anxiety is an intense fear of being judged, watched, criticised, embarrassed, or exposed in front of other people. It can happen at work, in meetings, at social events, on dates, at the school gate, or even on video calls. Now, this type of anxiety is not just shyness. It can feel like our body is preparing for danger the moment attention turns towards us. We may rehearse what we're going to say, avoid speaking, replay conversations afterwards, or leave situations feeling exhausted and ashamed. Underneath social anxiety, there is often a fear of not being good enough, being rejected, or being seen in a way that feels unsafe. Then we have anxiety around eating in public. This is not so well known, but it's actually quite common. This is called deepnophobia, and it can sit within social anxiety. It is a fear of eating in front of others, and some people may avoid restaurants, work meals, dates, family events, or social plans because the thought of being watched whilst eating feels too exposing. This can be incredibly isolating because many social events involve food. It is also something people often hide, which can make the anxiety feel even more stressful and shameful. But again, this is a nervous system response, it's not a character flaw. Panic disorder is when panic attacks happen repeatedly, sometimes without an obvious trigger. A panic attack can feel terrifying. Your heart pounds, your chest tightens, your breath feels trapped, and the body floods with adrenaline. And many people feel certain that they're going to die or faint or lose control, and they're unable to escape that feeling. Then the fear of the panic attack becomes part of the problem. We begin to fear the sensations. We avoid places where panic has happened before. The nervous system becomes primed to scan for the next wave. This is why panic can feel like a loop. The body reacts, the mind becomes frightened of the reaction, and the fear keeps the body on a high alert. Separation anxiety is most often spoken about in children, but it can also affect teenagers and adults. In children, it may show up as distress at the school drop-off, as needing constant reassurance, as difficulty sleeping alone, or fear that something will happen to a parent or a caregiver. In adults, separation anxiety can show up as anxiety when a partner travels away, or fear of being away from loved ones, or intense distress when connection feels uncertain. Underneath this type of anxiety, there is often a fear around safety, attachment, or loss. Health anxiety is another common pattern we see. This is when our body sensations become frightening. It may be a headache, a flutter in the chest, a stomach sensation, dizziness, tingling, or breathlessness can all trigger a spiral of fear. Many people with health anxiety check their body constantly. They Google symptoms, seek reassurance, book appointments, and then feel calmer for a few moments before the fear returns. This is because reassurance can temporarily settle the surface anxiety, but it does not change the nervous system pattern underneath. Health anxiety often carries the belief that I'm not safe in my own body. And once the nervous system has learnt to treat normal sensations as danger, it can be hard to ignore them. Sleep anxiety is when anxiety focuses on bedtime or the night. It might be the fear of not sleeping, the fear of waking up in the night, the fear of being alone at night, the fear of nightmares, or the fear of how we will cope tomorrow if we don't get enough sleep. The difficult part is that the harder we try to force sleep, the more alert the nervous system becomes. Bedtime starts to feel like a test, and the body begins to associate nighttime with threat rather than rest. OCD patterns involve intrusive thoughts and compulsions. Intrusive thoughts are unwanted thoughts, images, or urges that feel distressing, shocking, or out of character. Compulsions are the actions we feel driven to do to reduce anxiety, such as checking, cleaning, counting, repeating, mentally reviewing, researching, or asking for reassurance. The person does not want the thought. In fact, the thought is often distressing precisely because it goes against what the person values most. But the mind gets caught in the question, what if this means something? Then the compulsion gives a tiny burst of relief and the cycle continues. PTSD can develop after an experience that feels traumatic or overwhelming. This could be a single event or a series of events over time. It may involve danger, loss, helplessness, humiliation, shock, emotional harm, physical harm, or even witnessing something frightening. With PTSD, the nervous system can behave as if the event is still happening, even when it is over. People may experience flashbacks, nightmares, intrusive memories, hypervigilance, emotional numbness, avoidance, or a constant sense of scanning for danger. This is not the person being dramatic, it is the nervous system trying to make sure we are never caught off guard again. Phobias are intense fears of a specific object, animal, place, situation, feeling, or experience. The fear is usually far greater than the actual risk, but the body responds as if the danger is immediate and real. This could be a fear or phobia of mice, spiders, dogs, flying, lifts, needles, vomiting, driving, heights, storms, or many others. The person often knows logically that the fear is out of proportion, but the nervous system does not respond to logic in that moment. That is why phobias can feel so frustrating. We can know something is safe and still feel terrified. Agoraphobia is often misunderstood. It is not simply a fear of open spaces. It is more often a fear of being somewhere where escape feels difficult or where help may not be available if anxiety or panic was to strike. This might mean avoiding supermarkets, trains, planes, motorways, queues, shopping centres, bridges, large events, or being far from home. Over time, the world can become smaller and smaller, not because the person wants it that way, but because the nervous system is trying to avoid overwhelm. Telephobia is a neuroanxiety that impacts mostly the younger generation, and it's anxiety about making or receiving phone calls. It can show up as avoiding calls, letting the phone ring out, delaying voicemails, rehearsing what to say, feeling panic when the phone rings, or choosing to send a text message instead as it'd be easier than a phone call. Now, this can affect work, relationships, appointments and opportunities, and because phone calls are such a normal part of life, People often feel really embarrassed about struggling with them, but telephobia is a learned response, and a learned response can be changed. Selective mutism is most often seen in children, although it can continue into adolescence or adulthood if unsupported. A child may speak freely at home but be unable to speak up at school or with certain adults or in particular social situations. This isn't stubbornness and it's not rudeness, it's often the freeze response. The child's nervous system has moved into protection and speech becomes inaccessible in that environment. Body dysmorphic patterns can also sit close to anxiety. This is when a person becomes intensely preoccupied with a perceived flaw in their appearance. Often something that other people barely notice or do not notice at all. The anxiety can lead to checking mirrors, avoiding mirrors, seeking reassurance, comparing, hiding, or avoiding photos and social situations. Performance anxiety, exam anxiety, relationship anxiety, and presentation anxiety can also sit within these broader patterns. The labels may be different, but the underlying question is often the same. Does my nervous system feel safe enough here? Now, at this point, you might be wondering, how do we know when anxiety becomes something worth working with? A little anxiety before a presentation, exam, job interview, or big conversation is absolutely normal. Our nervous system is designed to respond when something matters. Anxiety becomes a problem when it is firing too often, too strongly, or in situations where it's no longer helpful. It becomes a problem when it's shaping your decisions, shrinking your life, disrupting your sleep, affecting your relationships, or making you avoid the things that matter to you most. And you do not need to wait until it becomes unbearable before seeking support. So I would love you to answer this in the comments. Which statement feels most true for you right now? Is it A, my anxiety mainly shows up as worry and overthinking? Is it B, my anxiety mainly shows up in the body as panic, breathlessness, or physical symptoms? Perhaps it's C, my anxiety mainly shows up around other people, being seen, being judged. Or D, my anxiety shows up in several different ways and I'm starting to realise they may all be connected. Pop an A, B, C or D in the comments below. Not because we're diagnosing anything from a comment, but because noticing the pattern is often the first step towards changing it. Now, let's look at some ways we can begin to settle anxiety in the moment. These tools are not the whole solution. They are not meant to replace deeper therapy work, but they are a way to calm the surface anxiety, reduce the intensity, and help your nervous system come back towards safety. The first tool is to slow down the out breath. When we are anxious, our breathing often becomes shallow, fast, or stuck high up in our chest. One of the simple ways to signal safety to the body is to lengthen the exhale. Breathe in gently for the count of 4, then breathe out for the count of 6. Do this for a couple of minutes and notice what begins to shift. The second strategy is to name what is happening. You might say to yourself, this is my threat response firing. That small sentence can be powerful because it separates you from the fear. Instead of thinking I am in danger, you begin to recognise your body is having an anxiety response. The third strategy is grounding through the senses. Look around and name 5 things you can see, 4 things you can hear, 3 things you can feel, 2 things you can smell, and 1 thing that you can taste. Now, this is not about distracting yourself in a superficial way. It's about orienting your nervous system to the present moment. The fourth strategy is to soften the tongue and the jaw. Many of us hold anxiety in our jaw, shoulders, neck, tongue, and face without realising it. Drop your tongue from the roof of your mouth. Let your jaw unclench. Allow your shoulders to lower. Take 5 slow breaths while keeping those areas soft. When the body softens, it sends a message back to the brain that we are not preparing to fight, run, or freeze. The fifth strategy is to gently reduce reassurance seeking. This is especially important for health anxiety, OCD patterns, intrusive thoughts, and relationship anxiety. Reassurance can feel helpful in the moment, But if we always reach for it, the nervous system never learns that we are actually safe, and it believes we need constant reassurance. Instead, practice waiting a little longer before checking, asking, searching or reviewing. Even a 30-second break before checking starts to teach the nervous system that you're okay. The sixth strategy is to understand your window of tolerance. Now, your window of tolerance is the zone where you can think clearly, feel your feelings and respond rather than react. When anxiety pushes you above the window, you may feel panicky, wired, angry, restless or overwhelmed. When you drop below the window of tolerance, you may feel numb, shut down, disconnected or exhausted. Our free window of tolerance workbook is a really helpful starting point because it helps you map your own signs and understand what brings you back to the middle. And you can find a link to it over in the description. The seventh strategy is the circle of control and influence workbook. Now, anxiety loves the space of things that we cannot control. What other people think, what might happen next, whether someone replies, what the future holds, what a symptom might mean. Drawing out what is in your control, what is in your influence, and what is outside of your control can really help the mind release some of the pressure it's been carrying. I often suggest the circle of control and influence workbook because it is a simple, practical, and very grounding tool. And again, you'll find that over in the description. The eighth strategy is to move your body daily. This does not have to be intense exercise. It could be a walk, stretching, dancing in the kitchen, swimming, yoga, gardening, or anything that helps your body discharge some of the stress chemistry already in your system. Anxiety is physical, so it makes sense that our body needs to be part of the healing process. The ninth strategy, especially for phobias and specific fears, is to use an exposure ladder. This means you do not throw yourself straight into the hardest thing. Instead, you create small, manageable steps and allow your nervous system to settle at each one before moving to the next stage. This is how we gently teach the body that something it once feared can become tolerable and eventually safe. If a specific fear is affecting your life, our free Exposure Ladder Workbook is also over in the description. So before we move into the final part of this video, if you are finding this helpful, please like the video, subscribe to our channel and turn on notifications. It really does help us reach more and more people who are struggling with anxiety and may not yet realise that change is possible. And remember, you can also find free resources in the description, including all the workbooks that we've mentioned in here today. So, if you recognise yourself in more than one type of anxiety, that does not mean things are worse. In many ways, it can actually make the work clearer because the types may look different, but the pattern underneath is likely to be the same. Your anxiety might show up in meetings, at night, in the body, around food, around loved ones, around your health, around your thoughts, or in specific feared situations. But underneath, we are usually looking at a nervous system trying to protect you and an unconscious belief that has not yet been updated. That is why at-home tools can help the surface and deeper work matters when anxiety keeps coming back. If you have tried to manage your anxiety by talking yourself out of it, avoiding triggers, pushing on through, seeking reassurance or using coping strategies that only work for a short time, it may be time to work at the root level where anxiety actually lives. At Better Your Life, we work with the nervous system and the unconscious mind together because lasting change often needs to happen below the level of conscious thought. If you are struggling with anxiety and would like guidance, our team at Better Your Life are here to support you. Together, we can help you understand what is driving your anxiety, calm your nervous system, and begin to feel more like you again. Left unresolved, anxiety can begin to affect relationships, work, school, sleep, physical health, and family life, but it does not have to keep running your life. So if you want to take back control and have a calmer, happier life where anxiety no longer holds you back, click the link over in the description and book a free consultation call. We work with clients in person in Chelmsford and Essex and across the UK and worldwide online. Whether your anxiety has a clear label or feels like several patterns all tangled together, there is a way forward. Before you go, I'd love you to know, which type of anxiety did you recognise most in yourself today? Let me know in the comments. Your comment may help someone else realise that they are not alone. And if you did find this video helpful, I really would appreciate if you could like it and subscribe to our channel and hit that notification button. Somebody might really need to see this video. Do take care, and remember, you don't need to struggle alone. Now is the right time to take back control. No one needs to struggle with anxiety. Thank you very much for watching, and I will see you on the next video. Bye for now.